in general. A new science called biogeometry claims that there are three geometrical shapes that are very powerful when it comes to the energy. And they are spherical, conical, and pyramidal. From 1940s and 1950s, in the jungles of southern Costa Rica, almost 400 stone spheres resurfaced when United Fruit Company from the US were clearing the jungle in order to plant the banana trees. They came with a big mechanization, removed about 12 to 15 feet of soil. And under the soil, they discovered 398 stone spheres, perfectly spherical, different sizes. Some of them are in the museum in San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. According to the archaeologists from this country and some American, those stone spheres were used as the territorial markers for the Indians. Now, I've been several times in Costa Rica. Only two ancient tribes there. They were always very primitive, never had technology to shape those stone spheres. The material they used is called granodiorite. That's a type of granite. Granite is the strongest material in the nature. In order to shape the granite, today we would need a diamond tool. So who had diamond tools thousands of years back? On the Isla del Cano, that's the island in Pacifica, there are more stone spheres, this time from different material called coquina. Coquina is a type of the sandstone material. And then in western Mexico, hundreds of miles away from the Mayan civilization, 700 stone spheres. Again, different material. The volcanic stone, different sizes. Some of them reach 40 tons, 90,000 pounds. In 1966, American archaeologist came to the site. He was shown it by local Mexican guys. And he was amazed. Hundreds of the stone spheres, perfectly shaped. The error from the perfect spherical shape, less than 2%. And he was shocked because, according to the historical records, in this part of Mexico, there were never highly developed civilizations. So what he did, he reported it to the National Geographic, which organized an expedition in 1967, which consisted of 2 geologists and 1 archaeologist. They came to the site, and then in the next issue of National Geographic, on the cover page, the title, "The Stone Sphere Enigma in Mexico Resolved." They are all natural. What they were saying was that the nearby volcano, 30 miles away, was producing somehow only regular, perfectly spherical stones. And during the volcano eruptions, sending them only to one direction, on the top of this hill. 30 miles, radius is 900 square miles radius. And they are all on 1 square mile radius. And they are on the top of the hill. None of them came down. And since National Geographic said that, it meant end of the story. Do not touch that no more. In the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was a rumor among the local population that inside those stone spheres was a treasure, a gold. So what the locals did, they would drill the holes, put the dynamite inside, and blew them up. 90% of the stone spheres are destroyed forever. So there is no trace for the future. Some of them just partially left, some of them completely destroyed. Really, was Volcano capable of making only perfectly regular spherical stones and then send them to the top of these little hills? What's the problem with the mainstream science? They cannot explain it. So the best way is to say nothing there, all natural. The next location with the stone spheres is Bosnia. Our non-profit foundation in the last 6-7 years have discovered the stone spheres on 20 different locations on Bosnian territory. And they are made from 3 different materials, from granite, volcanic stone, and the sandstone. In the case of volcanic and the granite, they are shaped like those stones in the northeastern Bosnia, perfectly spherical. Those in central Bosnia, obviously, volcanic stone, nicely shaped and then polished. Some of them, like the sandstone here, is not finished yet. The surface has not been polished. The biggest stone sphere in Bosnia so far is 15 tons, about 35,000 pounds. The biggest source of them is in the central Bosnian town of Zavidovići. In 1930s, there was a big storm. The water hit the hill. The hill opened up and 80 stone spheres came out. Half of them were gone to the biggest Bosnian river, River Bosna, and half of them are still there. Interestingly enough, in 1960s and 1970s, there was a rumor that there is a treasure in the Bosnian stone spheres. So what people were doing, they were coming with hammers and dynamite and destroyed 95% of them. There are still a very few that they remained untouched. And can just mention that next year we're going to have a couple of packages for tourists, and one of the places that we're going to visit is the stone sphere site in Bosnia. Why this shape is so important? Because of the energy. Energy, it's not a general term. But for the ancients, they knew exactly why they were using this particular shape. Let me explain you. In central Sweden, the best known archaeological site is called Osmanagich. We have 2 elliptical circles with the megaliths. In the middle, stone spheres. Swedish archaeologists do not know who, when, how, or why built this place. And the way they explain it, they are saying, well, maybe the ancients tried to make a replica of the boats. So, for them, this is a boat. They don't understand, and the ancients knew the energy flows below the surface better than us. Before I entered this circle, the president of the Swedish Dowsing Society measured my aura, the bioenergy field around my body. My aura was about 4 feet in length around my body. Then she asked me to climb the stone sphere, which I did. And then she started measuring my aura. She was saying 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, 45 feet, 55 feet. And while standing there, I felt I was on the top of the planet. I said, if I stay here a couple of minutes, my aura will be more than 200 feet. So obviously some unidentified energy was coming to my body, expanding my aura. And then she asked me to climb this tumulus, that's artificial conical hill, which I did. And she was measuring my chakras. The energy was coming through my body, so my 7th chakra, the one on the top of my head, opened so much. Why would ancient do something like this? They would collect the energy from this area. First, they would choose the place with the ley lines and potent energy lines, with the underground water flows, generating additional energies. And then they had a system of few dozens of stones in the forest, somehow collecting the energy, sending it to this area. So it was like a central area, a central power plant, if you wish. And then they would distribute the energies around, in the center, in the tumuli. When you expand your aura and your chakras, then you start expanding your spiritual senses. In 21st century, in general, people are saying, yes, we know there are some spiritual senses. We call them the 6th sense. And we have 5 physical senses. However, the ancients knew that there were, besides 5 physical senses, 25 spiritual senses. And they would develop all of them. So their educational process was not to go to school and learn information by heart when Napoleon was born and when he had this battle. But they were improving the spiritual senses. They would basically make creative persons who were able to get all the information from the past and the future. So no wonder that archaeologists today have no clue what they have in front of their eyes. And there's a reason why what mainstream scientists, archaeologists, historians, anthropologists, geologists are telling us about the ancient history is almost all wrong. The origin of man, civilizations, and the pyramids, the 3rd most powerful energetical shape. For the man, they are telling us that we are the product of the evolution. Of course we are not. At one point, we got here as a product of the genetical engineering. For the civilizations, they are telling us that everything started 8,000 years ago with Sumer, and then Babylon, and Akkad, and Assyria, and ancient Egypt, ancient India. Of course not. That's just the last cycle of humanity. And finally, for the pyramids, they are telling us they were built in ancient Egypt and Mexico. Again, wrong. They are built all over the planet. So we live in the time when the scientific paradigm will be left behind us forever, and the new one is to come. The oldest and most superior Egyptian pyramids were never built as a tomb for the pharaoh. The pyramids on Mexican soil were never built as places where they were going to sacrifice the enemies. Egyptologists are saying that this was the first pyramid on Egyptian soil, and they assign it to the 3rd dynasty pharaoh Djoser, 4,620 years ago. However, the network of underground tunnels was discovered, And in those tunnels and chambers, a lot of artifacts and pottery. The age, 5,800 years. The Pharaoh Djoser, 4,600. So it was 1,200 years before the reign of the third dynasty Pharaoh Djoser, and 600 years before the pharaonic Egypt. So who really built this colossal structure? Egyptologists claim that the last third dynasty pharaoh, the Pharaoh Sneferu, built not one, but 3 pyramids. This was one of them, the famous bent pyramid in Dahshur. Why they call it bent? Because the angle changes from 52 to 43 degrees. According to Egyptologists, the reason why they changed that was that in the middle of the construction, they realized that the structure was not so structurally stable, so they changed the angle. Well, they are wrong. Across this pyramid, there is a pyramid called the Red Pyramid, with the angles of 43 degrees. The most famous, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, is 52. So this one contained both numbers, both angles, both slopes. Why? Because the real pyramid builders knew that one of the energy flows within the pyramid goes this way, hitting exactly this point. So by changing the angle, they would make this energy flow quicker. Because as we will see by the end of the lectures, the pyramids were built as the energy machines. Egyptologists of today are simply not equipped with the knowledge to explain the purpose of these structures. So, across the bent pyramid in Dahshur in Egypt is a red pyramid, a beautiful, harmonical pyramid. Now, when we think about the builders, if they were pharaohs, they would probably leave some signs outside that they were the builders. Because on the temples that they were actually built by the pharaohs, you can always see a lot of hieroglyphic symbols and writings and pictures and paintings. Here outside, nothing. Not even a banner stating who built it. Now, there is an entrance to the pyramid. You enter it, no painting on the walls in the corridors. You get inside, the chambers are empty. No mummies, no hieroglyphic writings, no symbols, no tools, no organic material, not a single proof who, when, and why built this structure. But then Egyptologists are saying the Pharaoh Sneferu was not happy with the first pyramid. Then he was not happy with the second one. So he built the third one, the step pyramid in Meidum. It seems that it was very hard to satisfy this pharaoh. And again, outside, no signs who this pyramid belonged to. Inside, the empty corridors, no mummies. And then Egyptologists are saying that the pharaohs of the fourth dynasty, the pharaoh Cheops, Khephren, and Myceren, father, son, and the grandson, built the most famous pyramids on the planet. Again, outside, you see no signs who built them. Inside, corridors with the megalithic blocks, and empty chambers, and no mummies. The time will show that 2 centuries of claim of Egyptologists and archaeologists, with little help of Hollywood, about the pyramids being the tombs for the pharaohs, is the biggest hoax in human history ever. The Great Pyramid of Egypt, it has a square base. The length of the side, 232 meters. Two sides, 464, divided by height of 147 meters. The result is 3.14. 314 is the number pi. According to historians, that number will not be invented in another 2,000 years, until Pythagoras in ancient Greece. So how come we have this number so clearly in front of our face? With a similar way, we can get to the golden number. Number 5, 1.6. We can get to the distance from our planet to the sun, from our planet to the moon. This is not the knowledge that pharaonic Egypt had. When you go to Cairo and the beautiful National Museum, archaeologists will proudly show the tools of ancient Egypt. Primitive copper tools and the wooden sticks. And they claim that's all they needed in pharaonic Egypt to build this colossal structure which we cannot repeat in the 21st century with all of our technology. On prehistorical Egyptian vases, 7,000 years old, 2,500 before the pharaohs of the Fourth Dynasty, we can see the motifs of animals and birds and people and sheep and the pyramids by the river Nile, 2,500 years before the Pharaoh Cheops. On some other vases, they go back 8,000 years in time. We have dozens of pyramids. So they are telling us, yes, the pyramids were already there, much before the times of pharaohs. Those pyramids shown here are so-called true Egyptian pyramids, built from superior materials, from granite, from Aswan, which is 600 miles south from Giza Plateau, and from limestone. However, the Egyptian pharaohs did build pyramids during the 12th dynasty, during the 18th dynasty, during the 25th dynasty, but from the inferior material, from the mud brick. And that's common construction material even today. So they tried to make replica of something they already could see there, because it's been there thousands of years before them. But they did not have knowledge, engineering skills, or they did not know how to shape and maneuver with those superior materials. Two civilizations, the older one much more superior, and the most recent one inferior. They're teaching us in schools about the evolutionary way of humanity. They're teaching us wrong. 1,000 miles to the south, the former Nubian kingdom, today's northern Sudan, 224 pyramids. The African continent, we just visited northeastern portion, Egypt and Sudan. But the pyramids were built all over it. To the north, on the Italian islands of Sicily and Sardinia, to the west, on Canary Islands, and to the east, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the island of Mauritius. Not a single word about those pyramids in history books, in encyclopedias, or even on internet. 43 pyramids on the island of Sicily. 4-sided pyramids, volcanic stone has been used, stepped design, Cornerstones nicely shaped on both sides. We don't know who, when, or why. We go to the western coast of Africa, the Canary Islands, 4 of them inhabited. The biggest one is the island of Tenerife. Near the eastern town of Guimar, dozens of pyramids. Again, 4 sides, rectangular faces, plateau on the top, stepped design, the same height of the steps, the same width, cornerstones nicely shaped. When you climb the stairways on the western side, during the most important day for the ancient people, the summer solstice, June 21st, the sun would rise exactly in the middle of the plateau, meaning that the pyramid had orientation to the east, to the summer solstice. 4 years ago, when I had a lecture at La Laguna University in Tenerife, I spoke to the professors. I asked them if they visited pyramids in Guimar. They said, well, we went in Guimar, but according to the Spanish scientific community, these are not pyramids, but pile of rocks made by local farmers while they were cleaning the area to plant the agriculture. I told them, of course they are not pile of rocks, and I gave them all those elements of the carefully planned structures. They got mad because I dared to give a different version than mainstream Spanish scientific community. What is the problem with the Spanish scientists? 550 years ago, the Spanish conquerors were sailing to the west, Middle and South America. And the first one to face them were Guanches, people who were living on these islands. Very advanced culture. They were building stone cities, stone temples, stone pyramids, irrigation channels. But they had no military because they had no enemy. They were in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So the Spanish conquerors wiped them out in a few decades. And today, in order to justify such barbaric acts, they are saying Guanches were very primitive. They were cavemen, not capable of building structures like pyramids or temples. So what they do today, they falsify the history. On the other side of the African continent, 2,500 miles to the east from Africa is the island of Mauritius. When you go through the dense fields of sugar cane, 13 feet high, you can see some of the stone structures. When you climb one of them, you have a beautiful view of pyramids, total of 7 of them. Geometrically speaking, perfect case of stepped pyramid. 4 sides, plateau on the top, triangular faces, the steps of same height, same width, volcanic stone, nicely shaped cornerstones. Orientation of this side is to the east, to the summer solstice. Well, Mauritius is in southern hemisphere, so summer solstice is December 21st. No doubt that we have the same builders like on the other side of Africa, 4,000 miles away. When I measured the pyramids on Canary Islands and sent my report to my Egyptian colleagues in Cairo and Alexandria, they were shocked. They did not know about the pyramids. They think the only pyramids were built in Egypt. They know a little bit about Sumer and Babylon, and that's it. That's the end of the ancient world history. Now they saw those. They said, strange. We thought that the pyramids were a product of very advanced societies, like pharaonic Egypt. But when I sent them the pictures from the pyramids from Mauritius, they stopped talking to me. Everything they believed was gone. Once I did the measurement and concluded that 4 of them had perfectly squared base, I sent the report to the government of Mauritius, and I suggested them to investigate them together, because nothing about those pyramids can be found anywhere. They never did any systematic investigation. And then I got the answer back from the government of Mauritius. They were saying, Dr. Osmanagich, we don't have pyramids. What you are referring to are simply pile of rocks made by local farmers 100 years ago while de-rocking the area. End of the story. What are they afraid of? In every history books, every encyclopedia, the island of Mauritius was not inhabited until the 16th century. And then white Europeans came from Italy, France, Portugal, Holland,